The chair hit the floor. 20 executives went silent. And Vanessa Hart, 8 months pregnant, presentations scattered everywhere, looked up at the woman who just kicked her chair out from under her husband's mistress. Her husband laughed. That laugh cost him $97 million, his company, and 15 years of his life. But here's what nobody in that room knew. This wasn't just about an affair. Marcus Hart wasn't just cheating on his pregnant wife. He was planning her murder. Blood pressure pills hidden in his desk, dosage designed to cause stroke, text messages with his mistress discussing how Vanessa's natural death from pregnancy complications would be convenient. And here's the twist. He'd done this before. Same pattern, same job title, same baby name. 8 years earlier, different woman, same predator. This is the true story of a woman who discovered her husband had been systematically erasing her for months, and she had 72 hours to decide: stay silent and die, or expose everything and survive. What happened next involved the FBI, a premature baby, security footage that got 12 million views, and a trial that exposed a pattern 3 women deep. But it started with a chair, a laugh, and a woman who finally got angry enough to fight back. This is Vanessa's story. The conference room chair hit the marble floor with a crack that silenced 20 executives mid-sentence. Vanessa Hart steadied herself against the mahogany table. 8 months pregnant and suddenly off balance. Her water bottle tumbled across the financial projections she'd spent 3 weeks preparing. Blue ink bled across the numbers like accusations. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Sienna Cole said, her voice dripping with concern that didn't reach her eyes. Her Louboutin heel was still raised, still in the exact position that had kicked Vanessa's chair. "These heels, I didn't see your chair there." The room held its breath. 20 executives in $1,000 suits watching a pregnant woman try to maintain dignity while her husband's mistress stood over her. Then Marcus Hart laughed, not a nervous laugh, not an uncomfortable chuckle, a genuine, amused sound that carried across the glass and steel like a bell announcing execution. "Vanessa's gotten a bit clumsy lately," he said, his hands settling on Sienna's shoulder. Proprietary, comfortable, the way he used to touch Vanessa before her belly got in the way. "Pregnancy brain, right, honey?" The room erupted. Uncomfortable laughter from men who didn't want to seem humorless. Sympathetic sounds from the 2 other women present. Patricia from legal mouthed, "I'm sorry," across the table. Vanessa picked up her fallen chair. The baby, her daughter Lily, they'd chosen the name together 3 months ago, kicked hard against her ribs. Protest or encouragement, she couldn't tell. Her hands shook as she gathered the wet papers. Every eye in the room watching her, every person knowing. They all knew about the affair. They'd known before she did, and they'd waited, watching her perform the role of devoted wife while her husband replaced her with someone younger, prettier, more convenient. "I'll finish the presentation standing," Vanessa said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt, stronger than she was. "I do my best work on my feet anyway." Someone, probably Richard York, the chairman, coughed to cover a laugh. Vanessa spent the next 17 minutes presenting her quarterly operations report. 14% efficiency increase across all departments. Cost savings of $12 million. 3 restructured teams now operating at peak performance. Her best work. The work she'd done while 8 months pregnant, while her husband was planning her exit, while everyone in this room knew she was being played. The baby pressed against her bladder. Her ankles throbbed in heels she could barely fit into anymore. Sienna sat in Marcus's direct line of sight, legs crossed, taking notes that looked more like doodles. Marcus asked 3 questions during the presentation, all directed at Sienna about financial strategy, none about the operations Vanessa had rebuilt, none acknowledging the efficiency gains she had fought for through morning sickness and exhaustion, and nights when her husband came home smelling like someone else's perfume. "Brilliant financial strategy, Sienna," Marcus said as the meeting concluded, his hand still on her shoulder. "This is exactly why we promoted you to CFO." The room emptied, 20 executives fleeing to their offices, their assistants, their comfortable denial of what they'd just witnessed. Only Jerry Patterson, the 60-something COO who'd mentored Vanessa since she joined the company, paused at the door. "My office," he said quietly. "5 minutes. Don't go home." Vanessa gathered her materials. The conference room was empty except for the overturned water bottle still dripping onto her ruined presentation. 6 years of work. 6 years of making herself smaller, quieter, more convenient. 6 years of choosing to believe the lies because believing the truth would mean her marriage was a performance and her life was a script written by someone else. The baby kicked again, harder this time. I know, Vanessa whispered, hand on her belly. Something's wrong, I know. Jerry Patterson's office overlooked downtown Austin. Glass and steel and the illusion of transparency. He closed the door behind Vanessa, locked it, pulled the blinds. I've been collecting evidence for 11 months, Jerry said, spreading papers across his desk like accusations. Since the day Marcus announced Sienna's promotion to CFO. Expense reports, hotels in downtown Austin, restaurants, jewelry stores, always the same two names. Marcus Hart and Sienna Cole, always coded as business expenses, always approved by Marcus himself. Property records, Jerry continued, sliding another document across. Marcus bought Sienna a condo, $850,000. Cash. The deed says with love, M in the memo line. Vanessa stared at the papers, black ink on white, dates and dollar amounts, her husband's signature on every approval form. The promotion happened 1 week after you announced your pregnancy, Jerry said. They weren't even trying to hide it after that. The lipstick, Vanessa thought. 6 months ago at the investor dinner, coral pink on his collar, Sienna's signature shade. He'd said the dry cleaner mixed up his shirts. She'd wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, because the alternative meant choosing to see what was right in front of her. Maybe it's just business dinners, Vanessa heard herself say. The denial automatic, comfortable, safe. Jerry pulled out another document. Tiffany's receipt, $12,000. Engagement ring sizing, 4 months ago. 4 months ago, Vanessa was 5 months pregnant, beginning to show. Her wedding ring no longer fit over her swollen fingers. She'd moved it to her right hand, telling herself it was temporary, that after the baby came, everything would go back to normal. While her wedding ring came off, Marcus was sizing a new one for Sienna. My daughter went through something similar, Jerry said softly. Different industry, same playbook. I've watched Marcus do this before, Vanessa. To his last VP's wife. Different woman, same pattern. What do you mean before? Jerry was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up something on his computer, turned the screen toward her. A photo. A woman, maybe 35, pregnant, smiling at a company event. The caption read, Claire Hart, VP of Operations, Hart Technologies, 2011. Marcus's first wife, Jerry said. She had your job, she was pregnant. And 8 years ago, she discovered Marcus was having an affair with a junior accountant. She tried to expose it. He destroyed her career, took custody of their son during the divorce, and she moved to Oregon to start over. Vanessa felt the room tilt. He never told me he was married before. Because the pattern only works if you don't know it's a pattern, Jerry said. And Vanessa, there's something else you need to see. He pulled up another document, a birth certificate. Claire's baby, born 32 weeks, 6 weeks in NICU, high-stress pregnancy. Vanessa's hand went to her belly. 36 weeks now, 4 weeks until her planned C-section. The baby's name was going to be Lily, Jerry said quietly. Claire told me that before she left. They'd picked the name Lily for a girl. The room went silent except for Vanessa's breathing. Short, shallow, the beginning of a panic attack she couldn't afford to have. He's doing it again, Vanessa whispered. The same name, the same job, the same everything, Jerry finished, because it worked before. And Vanessa, I need you to understand something. Claire's doctor suspected the stress from the affair contributed to the premature birth. Elevated cortisol, chronic stress, the body deciding it couldn't sustain both lives. Vanessa looked at the photo of Claire Hart, saw herself, saw every woman who'd ever made herself smaller for a man who saw her as temporary. I need you to print everything, Vanessa said. Her voice didn't shake, couldn't afford to shake. If I'm wrong, I'll destroy the copies. If I'm right, I'll need them. Already done, Jerry said. He pulled a thumb drive from his desk drawer. This is yours, everything. But Vanessa, there's more. The affairs aren't the worst part. He pulled up financial spreadsheets, highlighted sections showing money transfers, millions of dollars, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Delaware LLCs with names that sounded made up, 47 million in the Caymans, 40 million in Delaware entities, all registered to Sienna Cole. Before she became CFO, before she had legitimate access to move money. The implications hit Vanessa like a physical blow. That's not an affair. That's fraud. That's 87 million in systematic theft, Jerry said. And look at the transfer dates. Every major movement happened during your business trips. Chicago, Boston, San Francisco. While you were traveling for work, making the company better, they were stealing millions. And if this is discovered? Vanessa asked, though she already knew the answer. Jerry pulled up access logs, Vanessa's digital signature, Vanessa's email, Vanessa's operations credentials authorizing transfers she'd never approved. They've been setting you up for months, Jerry said. If the fraud is exposed and you don't cooperate, you'll go to federal prison while pregnant, and Marcus gets custody of Lily. Vanessa sat in the chair that hadn't been kicked out from under her and understood. She wasn't just being cheated on. She was being erased systematically, methodically, by a man who'd done this before and would do it again. The baby kicked, strong, healthy, trusting that her mother would protect her. What do I do? Vanessa asked. Document everything. Get a lawyer. And Vanessa? Jerry's expression was grim. Do not go home alone tonight. Do not let him know you suspect anything. Act normal until you have a plan. Because men like Marcus, they're most dangerous when they realize they're losing control. Vanessa took the thumb drive. Evidence, proof. The beginning of the end of everything she'd built, or the beginning of building something real. Rebecca Sullivan's examination room smelled like antiseptic in the future Vanessa was trying to avoid. The blood pressure cuff squeezed her arm, tightened. The numbers climbed, 145 over 95. Your cortisol levels are through the roof, Dr. Sullivan said. The 42-year-old obstetrician had been Vanessa's doctor for 3 years, had delivered half of Austin's tech executive babies, had seen everything twice. Vanessa, are you under unusual stress? The words tumbled out. The chair, the affair, the offshore accounts, $87 million. The pattern, Claire, the baby named Lily 8 years ago, all of it. Dr. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that would cost her license if anyone found out. She pulled up old patient files on her computer. I'm going to tell you something off the record, Dr. Sullivan said. 8 years ago, I had a patient named Claire. Claire Hart, Marcus's first wife. The fetal monitor beeped, steady, strong, Lily's heartbeat, the only honest thing in Vanessa's life. She was pregnant, high-stress pregnancy, blood pressure like yours, cortisol levels elevated for months. She delivered at 32 weeks. Emergency situation. Baby survived, barely. 6 weeks in NICU, learning to breathe. Hospital notes flagged suspected domestic emotional abuse, but Claire wouldn't press charges. He never told me, Vanessa whispered. Men like Marcus don't tell you about their patterns, Dr. Sullivan said. They just repeat them. And Vanessa, I need you to understand what I'm about to say. The autopsy of Claire's placenta showed nothing physically wrong. The baby just stopped getting enough oxygen around 30 weeks. That happens when the mother's stress hormones stay elevated too long. The body makes a choice. Save the mother or save the baby. Sometimes it chooses wrong. She turned the monitor so Vanessa could see. Lily's heartbeat, strong now. But for how much longer? Your baby is healthy today. You're physically healthy, but your blood pressure is climbing. Protein in your urine, early signs of preeclampsia. And Vanessa, stress like this, it's not just emotional, it's biological. Your body is keeping score of every lie, every betrayal, every moment of fear. And eventually it'll say, enough. Dr. Sullivan wrote a number on the back of a business card. Patricia Monroe, family attorney, friend of mine, specializes in high-asset divorces. She's ruthless in the best way. I don't want ruthless, Vanessa said. I just want out. You want out? Dr. Sullivan's voice was sharp. Claire wanted out too. You know what she got? A custody battle that lasted 2 years. A reputation destroyed by Marcus's lawyers claiming she was mentally unstable. Supervised visits with her son. And Marcus? He got everything. The company, the house, the narrative. She leaned forward. So yes, Vanessa, you need Ruthless. Because Marcus has had 8 years to perfect his playbook. And you're in the exact same position Claire was. Pregnant, dependent on him financially, about to discover fraud that could send you both to prison if you don't move first. Vanessa took the card, tucked it next to the thumb drive in her purse. How do I know Patricia can help? Because she's the one who finally got Claire full custody 3 years ago, Dr. Sullivan said, after Marcus got arrested for tax evasion. Different case, different charges, but same pattern. And Patricia documented everything. She's been waiting for Marcus to do this again. That night at 2 in the morning, Vanessa stood in Marcus's home office. He was at Sienna's condo. She tracked his phone. The locked drawer in his desk opened after 3 YouTube tutorials on bobby pin lockpicking and 4 minutes of trying not to shake. Inside, a burner phone. She scrolled through texts between Marcus and Sienna, 14 months of messages. But the ones from 7 months ago, right after Vanessa announced her pregnancy, made her blood run cold. Sienna, she's pregnant? Marcus, problem solved itself. Give her 18 months of midnight feedings, she'll be too tired to ask questions. Then early retirement. Health reasons. Claire-style exit. Sienna. And us? Marcus. Divorce after the kid's in preschool. By then she'll have no leverage. I keep custody, you keep CFO. Clean transition. Sienna. What about the baby? Marcus. What about it? I kept my son. I'll keep this one too. Vanessa's unstable, remember? Pregnancy hormones, postpartum depression. We'll document everything. By the time we file, she'll look like she's falling apart. Because she will be. Vanessa's hands trembled as she took photos of every message. But the worst texts were further down, from 3 weeks ago. Marcus, blood pressure issues, doctor wants to monitor. Sienna, that's good, right? Natural exit if things go wrong. Marcus, Claire almost died with hers. If Vanessa's pregnancy complications worsen, we could speed up the timeline. Tragic accident, preeclampsia. No one questions it. I'm the grieving widower. You comfort me. 6 months later, engagement. A year later, married. Clean narrative. Vanessa dropped the phone, picked it back up, read it again to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. Marcus wasn't just planning to divorce her. He was planning for her to die. Planning for her pregnancy complications to worsen naturally. Planning to look like the victim while the baby kicked. Hard. Frantic. Vanessa ran to the bathroom, threw up everything in her stomach, sat on the cold tile floor, hand on her belly, and understood. She wasn't safe here. Lily wasn't safe here, and time was running out. She went back to the office, photographed every document, every text, every financial record, uploaded everything to 3 different cloud services, created encrypted backups. Then she found something else in the drawer. A bottle of pills, prescription-only blood pressure, medication. But not hers, not her prescription, not her dosage. The label said as needed for elevated BP, but the dosage was 4 times what a pregnant woman should take. Enough to cause a stroke, enough to kill, enough to look like a tragic pregnancy complication. Vanessa photographed the bottle, checked the prescription. It was under Marcus's name, but the dosage made no sense unless he was planning to add it to her prenatal vitamins. Make her blood pressure spike, cause a crisis, look like a natural tragedy. She took the bottle, put it in her purse. Evidence, proof, the thing that would either save her life or condemn her to looking like a paranoid, crazy person. At 7 in the morning, she called Madison. I need a lawyer, and I think Marcus is trying to kill me. Madison Hart Cooper's law office in Dallas had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Success built on protecting people from their worst mistakes, or their worst spouses. This is attempted murder, Madison said, staring at the photos of the pills on Vanessa's phone. Not just divorce, not just fraud. Marcus was planning to kill you. I can't prove intent, Vanessa said. It's just pills in his drawer. He could say they're for him. That I'm paranoid, pregnancy hormones, postpartum psychosis starting early. That's what he'll say, Madison agreed, which is why we need everything else to stick. The fraud, the affair, the pattern with Claire. We build a case so airtight that when we mention the pills, it's just one more piece of evidence in a pattern of predatory behavior. She spread Vanessa's evidence across the conference table. Texts, financial documents, property records, the thumb drive from Jerry with 11 months of documentation. This is bigger than divorce, Madison said. This is SEC territory, securities fraud, wire fraud, yearly tax evasion. If we do this right, Marcus goes to federal prison for 20 years. But Vanessa, if we do this wrong, you go to prison instead. Because look, she pulled up the access logs, your credentials, your signature, your email. They've been setting you up for months. Kyle Morrington arrived an hour later, Madison's forensic accountant, 35, sharp-dressed, with a wit that could cut glass. "Show me the money," he said, spreading his laptop across the table. Vanessa walked him through the offshore accounts, the Delaware LLCs, the transfer dates that matched her business trips. Kyle's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up business registries, bank routing numbers, corporate filings, shell company formations. "They're good," Kyle said after 90 minutes. "Really good. But they got greedy, started moving larger amounts. That triggers algorithms. And look at this." He pointed to a series of transfers. Same amounts, different accounts, sequential timing. That's a pattern. Juries love patterns. Prosecutors love patterns. The SEC really loves patterns. "Can you prove they did it?" Vanessa asked. "I can prove the money moved," Kyle said. "I can prove the timing. I can prove the pattern. But proving who authorized it? That's where your testimony comes in. Because right now, the digital trail says you did it. Your signature, your access, your credentials." "Which is why we need more," Madison said. She pulled out her phone, made a call. "Sarah, it's Madison. I need a favor. Financial fraud case, 87 million, multiple jurisdictions. Can you meet us today?" Detective Sarah Ortiz arrived that afternoon. Austin PD Financial Crimes Division. Fed up with rich guys getting away with it. "Show me what you have," she said. They spent 3 hours walking through everything. Sarah took notes, asked questions, made calls to federal contacts. Finally, she sat back. "This is SEC FBI joint jurisdiction. But here's the problem. Richard York, your chairman, he's got FBI connections, military background, bunch of favors owed. If we move through official channels, he'll kill the investigation before it starts." "So what do we do?" Vanessa asked. "We build the case quietly," Sarah said. "Document everything. Get more evidence. Then we don't go to the FBI. We go to the press, make it public, force the SEC's hand. Because politicians can ignore SEC complaints. They can't ignore voter outrage. That means Vanessa becomes public," Madison said. "Pregnant whistleblower, media circus, her life becomes a spectacle." "Better than dead," Sarah said bluntly, "because those pills, that's attempted murder. Premeditated. And if he's planning it once, he'll try again. Maybe different method. But he'll try. Men like Marcus don't let obstacles live." Vanessa looked at the evidence spread across the table. The pills, the text, the financial fraud, the pattern. Everything pointing to one truth. Her husband had been planning her elimination for months. "I want immunity in writing," Vanessa said. "I want protection. I want my daughter safe. And then I want to watch Marcus burn." Madison smiled. "Now you're thinking like a survivor." Over the next 3 days, they built the case. Kyle traced every dollar. Sarah pulled phone records, surveillance footage, credit card statements. Madison drafted immunity agreements, custody filings, protective orders. And Vanessa? Vanessa wore a wire to dinner with Marcus. He'd insisted on reconnecting, said he'd been distant, said he wanted to be more present before the baby came. Vanessa smiled, agreed, wore the wire taped under her maternity dress, and sat across from her husband at their favorite restaurant. "I'm sorry I've been absent," Marcus said, reaching across the table for her hand. "The company stuff has been intense, but I want you to know you and Lily are my priority." I appreciate that, Vanessa said, her voice steady, the wire recording every word. I've been worried about our financial situation. With the baby coming, I want to make sure we're stable. Marcus's expression flickered. Just for a second. We're more than stable. The offshore accounts are performing incredibly well. Offshore accounts? The Cayman subsidiaries, Marcus said smoothly, part of our international expansion strategy. Sienna's been handling it. Very lucrative. How much are we talking? Ballpark? 90 million in assets, give or take. 90 million. He just admitted to 10 million more than Kyle had found, which meant there were accounts they hadn't discovered yet. That's amazing, Vanessa said. When did we start moving that kind of money internationally? Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Sienna. I need to take this, he said, standing. Work thing. He walked to the restaurant entrance. Vanessa watched through the window as he answered, saw him laugh, saw him run his hand through his hair the way he used to do with her. The wire picked up his voice through the glass. She's asking about the offshore accounts. No, I handled it. She believes it's company assets. She has no idea we're moving it tomorrow. Tomorrow. They were liquidating tomorrow, which meant time was up. When Marcus returned, Vanessa smiled. Everything okay? Perfect, he said. Just Sienna confirming some transfers. Hey, what would you think about taking an early maternity leave? I know you wanted to work until delivery, but with your blood pressure issues, maybe it's safer to step back now. Step back, be removed from the company, lose access to evidence, lose credibility, become the paranoid pregnant wife who couldn't handle the stress. I'll think about it, Vanessa said. That night, Madison called. We got everything, his admission about the offshore accounts, the call with Sienna about moving money, the suggestion you take early leave. It's enough. What happens now? Vanessa asked. Now we move fast, Madison said, because they were liquidating tomorrow, which means tomorrow we go public. Marcus announced the investor dinner 3 days later. 20 wealthy investors at their home. Sienna would be there as CFO. I need you to co-host, he told Vanessa. Optics, happy pregnant wife. The investors loved that family man image. Vanessa smiled, agreed, wore the navy blue maternity dress and played her part. But this time she had a plan. The dinner was perfectly catered. Expensive wine Vanessa couldn't drink. Elaborate food she couldn't keep down. 20 investors and their spouse making small talk about markets and profits and the weather. Sienna arrived in red, always red. Confidence and sexuality wrapped in designer fabric. She kissed Marcus on the cheek. Too familiar, too comfortable. Vanessa watched from across the room as Marcus's hand settled on Sienna's lower back. Proprietary, possessive. Jerry Patterson was the only other person who saw it. Caught Vanessa's eye across the room, nodded once. He knew what was coming. Mid-dinner, Marcus stood, tapped his glass for attention. The room went quiet. I have exciting news, Marcus said, smiling at the assembled investors. As Hart Technologies continues to grow, we're restructuring our executive team for maximum efficiency. Effective immediately, Sienna Cole will be taking over operations in addition to her CFO role. This consolidation allows us to move faster, make bolder decisions. He paused, let the room process, then added, almost as an afterthought, Vanessa will transition to an advisory role after her maternity leave. Part-time, flexible schedule. We want her focused on family right now. The room erupted in polite applause. One investor's wife, Karen something, Vanessa could never remember, said brightly, Congratulations, Sienna. And Vanessa, how wonderful that you'll have more time with the baby. Vanessa felt every eye on her, the pregnant wife being publicly demoted at her own dinner table, erased in front of 20 witnesses who'd go home and tell their friends about Marcus Hart's pregnant wife who couldn't handle the job. Jerry stood up, threw his napkin on the table, walked out without a word, the only one who couldn't stomach it. Patricia from legal caught Vanessa's eye, mouthed, I'm so sorry. Richard York, the chairman, raised his glass. To new beginnings, he said. 30 people drank. Vanessa held her water glass and wanted to throw it, but she didn't. She smiled. She thanked people for their concern. She played the grateful wife, accepting her husband's generous decision to let her rest. And when she excused herself to the bathroom, When she sat on the cold tile floor with her hand on her belly and tears running down her face, she pulled out her phone and texted Madison, "It's time, publish everything." Then her phone rang. Dr. Sullivan. "Your latest blood work is concerning," the doctor said. "Protein in urine. Blood pressure, 160 over 100. Severe preeclampsia. I need you in the hospital tonight. If it worsens, we deliver early." "How early?" Vanessa asked. "Tonight, tomorrow, whenever your body decides it's had enough. Vanessa, you need to get to the hospital now." Vanessa stood, looked at herself in the mirror. Navy blue dress, makeup perfect, performance complete. Except this time her body was calling the curtain. She walked back to the dining room, all eyes turned to her. "I need to go to the hospital," Vanessa said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Blood pressure issues, the baby's in danger." Marcus stood, concerned husband. "I'll drive you." "No," Vanessa said, sharp, clear. "Madison's driving me. You stay, host. This is important for the company." She grabbed her purse. Jerry appeared at her side. "I'm coming with you," he said. Not a question. In the car, Madison drove while Jerry called ahead to the hospital. Vanessa stared out the window at Austin passing by. City lights, normal lives, people who weren't about to blow up their entire existence. "Are you sure?" Madison asked quietly. "Once we publish, there's no going back. Your life becomes public. Marcus will fight. It'll get ugly." "It's already ugly," Vanessa said. "At least this way, it's honest." At the hospital, Dr. Sullivan admitted her immediately. Blood pressure 180 over 110, severe headache, vision blurring, preeclampsia crisis. "We're delivering today," Dr. Sullivan said. "Right now, the baby's safer out than in. 36 weeks is early but viable. She'll need NICU monitoring, but she'll be okay. You won't be if we wait." "Do it," Vanessa said. As they wheeled her toward the operating room, Vanessa looked at Madison. "Publish everything. Tonight, while I'm in surgery, I want Marcus to find out the same way the world does. I want him blindsided." "Are you sure?" Madison asked. "I spent 6 years being convenient," Vanessa said. "Now watch me be inconvenient." Those were the last words Vanessa spoke before anesthesia took her, before the C-section, before Lily was born at 5 pounds, 2 ounces, before everything changed. And while Vanessa was unconscious, while doctors delivered her daughter, while Lily took her first breath in the NICU, Madison sat in the hospital waiting room and hit send on an email to Natasha Green at the Dallas Morning News. Subject: "The Heart Technologies fraud, an exclusive." Attached: every document, every photo, every recording, everything. By the time Vanessa woke up, the article was already live. Front page, going viral, and Marcus Hart's world was burning down. Vanessa woke up to Madison's face hovering over her. "She's perfect," Madison said. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. Breathing support in NICU, but strong. The doctors say she'll be fine." "And Marcus?" Vanessa asked, her voice rough from intubation. Madison smiled, pulled out her phone, showed Vanessa the Dallas Morning News homepage. Austin Tech CEO's $87 million fraud, a pattern of predatory marriages. Exclusive: pregnant wife exposes husband's systematic theft and murder plot, by Natasha Green. The article was devastating, 6,000 words of detailed financial breakdown. The text planning Vanessa's natural death. Photos of the blood pressure pills. Interviews with Claire, Marcus's first wife. Timeline showing Marcus's relationships overlapping with fraud periods. Evidence that Richard York knew and facilitated everything. But the part going most viral wasn't the fraud. It was the security footage. "Jerry gave us the board meeting video," Madison said. "The chair kick. Marcus laughing, all of it. Natasha posted it with the article. It's been viewed 12 million times in 6 hours. TikTok is losing their minds." She pulled up her phone, showed Vanessa the video. 20 seconds of Sienna kicking the chair. Marcus laughing. Vanessa falling. The comments: "This man is a demon. I would have thrown that water bottle at his head. She's pregnant and he's laughing. Someone find out where he lives. I just want to talk." The video had been cut into dozens of reaction videos. Women crying watching it. Men saying, "I'd never." Everyone agreeing Marcus Hart was the villain of the internet. Within 12 hours, Hart Technologies stock crashed 71%. Emergency board meeting called. Richard York resigned. 3 board members retained criminal defense attorneys. The SEC reopened investigation due to public interest and new evidence. FBI announced wire fraud investigation. Marcus's assets frozen. Sienna Cole fled to her parents' house in Connecticut. By evening, Marcus's lawyer issued a statement. My client categorically denies all allegations and looks forward to clearing his name in court. But the damage was done. The internet had decided Marcus Hart was guilty, and the internet doesn't forgive. Vanessa's hospital room became command central. Madison coordinating with lawyers. Kyle analyzing financial documents with federal investigators. Sarah Ortiz liaising with the FBI. And Vanessa, recovering from surgery, pumping breast milk for the daughter she couldn't hold yet, watching her husband's empire collapse on her phone. Marcus came to the hospital once, 23 hours after Lily was born, walked in like nothing had changed. She's beautiful, he said, looking at the photo Vanessa had on her phone. Lily in the NICU, tubes and wires and tiny fingers. Don't, Vanessa said. Don't pretend you care. She's my daughter. She's the baby you plan to orphan, Vanessa interrupted. The text, Marcus. I have the text where you and Sienna discussed my pregnancy complications being convenient, where you talked about speeding up my death. Marcus's expression shifted, the mask cracking. Those were taken out of context. I would never. You bought pills, Vanessa said. High-dose blood pressure medication, 4 times what a pregnant woman should take. Were you planning to slip them into my prenatal vitamins? Make my blood pressure spike? Cause a stroke? How were you going to do it? You're paranoid, Marcus said, but his voice shook. Pregnancy hormones, postpartum psychosis. You need help, Vanessa. No, Vanessa said, I needed to wake up. And Marcus, I'm awake now. I see exactly what you are. And soon, so will everyone else. Security escorted Marcus out after that. Hospital policy. Madison had filed a restraining order. No contact except through lawyers. But as he left, Marcus turned back. You're making a mistake. You have no idea what you've started. The people involved, the money at stake. You think you're safe because you went public? You've just made yourself a target. Good, Vanessa said. Let them come. I'm done hiding. 48 hours after Lily was born, Sienna showed up at the hospital, walked right past security somehow, found Vanessa's room. We need to talk, Sienna said, closing the door behind her. We have nothing to talk about, Vanessa said. Reach for the call button. Wait, Sienna said. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? That you stole $87 million? That you helped my husband plan my death? That you kicked my chair in front of 20 people like I was nothing? I didn't know about the pills, Sienna said quickly. The murder plan, that was all Marcus. I swear. I knew about the affair, the fraud, the exit strategy for you. But killing you, that was him. And when I found out, She stopped. I'm here to help. I want to flip. Testify against him. I have more evidence. Accounts you don't know about. Plans you haven't seen. Why would you help me? Vanessa asked. Because I'm 29, Sienna said. And I'm looking at 20 years in federal prison. Marcus is 41. He'll be 60 when he gets out, if he gets out. But me, I'll be 49. My life is over, unless I cooperate, unless I give them everything and get immunity. She pulled out her phone, showed Vanessa texts, financial documents, photos of meetings with offshore bankers. There's 10 million more, Sienna said. Hidden accounts Marcus didn't tell anyone about. Not me, not Richard York, nobody. His exit plan if everything went wrong. And I know where it is. I know the account numbers, the passwords, everything. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa asked. Because Marcus threw me under the bus, Sienna said. His statement blamed me for everything. Said I manipulated him, used the affair to gain access, made him look like the victim. And I realized he's been planning my exit too, the same way he planned yours, the same way he planned Claire's. I'm just another woman he used and discarded, she sat down. Looked at Vanessa with something like kinship. He picked me because I was ambitious and flexible with morals. He picked you because you were competent and trusting. He picked Claire because She was operational and desperate to prove herself. We're all the same to him. Tools. Temporary. Replaceable. So you want redemption? Vanessa asked. I want survival, Sienna said. And I want Marcus to pay for treating us like we're disposable. So yes, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. The fraud, the affairs, the pattern, all of it in exchange for immunity. Vanessa looked at the woman who'd kicked her chair, who'd slept with her husband, who'd helped steal $87 million, and saw someone who'd been played just like her. Different game, same ending. Madison, Vanessa called. Her sister came in from the hallway. Sienna wants to flip, get her immunity deal in writing, full cooperation, everything she knows. Are you sure? Madison asked. She's the woman who, I know what she did, Vanessa interrupted, but she's also the woman who can put Marcus in prison for 20 years instead of 10. And right now, that's worth more than revenge. Sienna nodded, stood. Thank you. I know I don't deserve. You're right, Vanessa said. You don't. But my daughter deserves a father who can't hurt her, and your testimony makes that happen. So do it. Tell them everything. Burn it all down. After Sienna left, Madison sat on the hospital bed. That was smart. Cold, but smart. I spent 6 years being nice, Vanessa said. Being understanding, being convenient, and it nearly killed me. So no, I'm not nice anymore. I'm strategic. And strategy says Sienna's testimony destroys Marcus completely. When did you get so ruthless? Madison asked. Vanessa looked at the photo of Lily on her phone. When I had something more important to protect than his feelings. 6 months later, Vanessa walked into federal court carrying evidence that would end Marcus Hart's life as he knew it. Lily was with Madison in the gallery, 6 months old, healthy, happy, no idea her father was on trial for fraud that could send him to prison for 2 decades. The courtroom was packed, media in the back, investors in the gallery, board members who'd flipped, waiting to testify, and Marcus Hart at the defense table, expensive suit, expensive lawyers, looking exactly like what he was, a man who'd built an empire on other people's trust and was shocked anyone noticed when he burned it down. Vanessa testified first, 4 hours on the stand. The prosecutor walked her through everything. Mrs. Hart, when did you first suspect your husband was defrauding investors? When I found financial documents showing $87 million in offshore accounts registered to his mistress, before she became CFO, before she had legitimate access to move money. And what did you do? I reported it to the SEC. I documented everything. I wore a wire to gather evidence. I risked my health and my pregnancy to expose the truth. Because $87 million doesn't disappear by accident. Someone moved it, and I needed to prove who. Let's talk about the blood pressure medication found in your husband's desk drawer. The defense attorney objected. Relevance, Your Honor. Mrs. Hart was never actually harmed. It's relevant to establishing pattern and intent, the prosecutor said. The defendant had in his possession medication that could cause fatal complications in a pregnant woman. Combined with his text messages discussing his wife's pregnancy complications as convenient, it establishes attempted murder. The judge allowed it. Vanessa held up the photo of the pill bottle. This medication, in this dosage, could cause stroke in a pregnant woman with elevated blood pressure. I found it in my husband's locked desk drawer. 3 months supply. Not prescribed to me, not prescribed at a safe dosage. Just there, waiting. What did you think when you found it? The prosecutor asked. I thought I was going to do it, Vanessa said. I thought my husband had been planning my death for months, making it look natural, preeclampsia, stroke, tragic pregnancy complication. And everyone would have believed it because my blood pressure was already elevated from the stress of discovering his affair. He was using my body's reaction to his betrayal as the murder weapon. The jury looked at Marcus with disgust. Marcus's lawyer stood for cross-examination, tried for 3 hours to make Vanessa seem vindictive, emotional, unreliable. But the numbers didn't lie. The documents didn't lie. The recordings of Marcus admitting to offshore accounts didn't lie. And when the lawyer suggested Vanessa had orchestrated the entire fraud herself and was framing Marcus, Vanessa smiled. Counselor, the Delaware LLCs were created 2 months before I even knew they existed. registered in Sienna Cole's name, with formation documents filed while I was in Boston on a business trip with 12 witnesses who can confirm I was 800 miles away. Unless you're suggesting I have the ability to file corporate documents from the future, your theory doesn't work. The gallery laughed. The judge called for order. Marcus's lawyer sat down. Jerry testified next. Emotional, credible, explained how he'd watched Marcus do this before, how he'd collected evidence because he couldn't let Claire's story repeat with Vanessa. Kyle explained the money trail to the jury, made it simple. Imagine you're stealing from your workplace. You can't just take the money. You have to hide it, create fake companies, move it offshore, make it look legitimate. That's what they did. And Mrs. Hart discovered it because she was good at her job. Too good. She started asking questions. So they decided to eliminate the problem. But the most devastating testimony came from Sienna Cole. She sat in the witness box, immunity deal signed, and destroyed Marcus completely. He told me the plan from the beginning, Sienna said. Marry Vanessa for her operational expertise. Use her credibility with investors. Build the company. Once it was profitable, siphon funds offshore. When she got pregnant, push her out. If she fought back, we had documentation ready showing she authorized everything. Her digital signature, her email. She'd go to prison, he'd keep custody, clean narrative. Did Mr. Hart ever express remorse? The prosecutor asked. No, Sienna said. He said Vanessa was convenient while she was useful. But pregnant women are liabilities, distracted, emotional. He needed someone focused, someone who understood the long game. That's where I came in. What about the medication? The blood pressure pills? Sienna looked at Marcus. He stared back, expressionless. He told me he was exploring options, said if Vanessa's pregnancy complications worsened naturally, it would solve several problems. I didn't think he was serious until I found the pills. Then I realized he'd done this before, or tried to. Claire Hart's pregnancy complications weren't random. They were manufactured. The stress from the affair, the gaslighting, making her think she was crazy. It's a pattern. The defense tried to argue Marcus was a brilliant businessman who'd made poor choices but had no criminal intent, that Sienna had manipulated him, that Vanessa was vindictive. But then the prosecutor played the recording from the restaurant, Marcus admitting to $90 million in offshore accounts. Marcus on the phone saying, she believes it's company assets. She has no idea we're moving it tomorrow. His own words, his own voice, admitting to everything. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, all 12 counts. The courtroom erupted, investors cheering. Media rushing to file stories. Marcus's lawyers immediately filing appeals. But none of that mattered because the judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later, and federal guidelines suggested 15 to 20 years. Restitution of $97 million, the $10 million Sienna had revealed, plus the $87 they'd originally found. Sienna got 6 years. Her cooperation had earned leniency. Vanessa sat in the gallery, Lily on her lap, and watched Marcus being led away in handcuffs. He looked at her once, really looked at her for the first time in months. Saw not the convenient wife, but the woman who'd survived him. I loved you, Marcus said as the bailiffs led him past her seat. Vanessa stood, looked him in the eye. You're not my husband, she said. You're a business plan that failed. And then he was gone. Led away to await sentencing. Led away from the life he'd built on lies and other people's trust. Jerry hugged Vanessa in the courthouse hallway. You did it, he said. And you actually did it. We did it, Vanessa corrected. You, me, Madison, Kyle, everyone who refused to let him get away with it again. What happens now? Jerry asked. Vanessa looked at Lily, looked at Madison, looked at Kyle and Sarah and Dr. Sullivan, who'd all come to watch justice happen. Now, Vanessa said, now I go build a life that's mine. Not performed, not convenient, just real. 18 months after the verdict, Vanessa got a call from Marcus's lawyer. My client would like to see you, the lawyer said. One visit, just to talk. He's eligible for early release in 3 years if he maintains good behavior, and he wants to discuss. No, Vanessa said. Mrs. Hart, I understand your reluctance, but I'm not Mrs. Hart anymore, Vanessa interrupted. The divorce was finalized a year ago, and I have no interest in helping Marcus rehabilitate his image for parole boards. He's not asking for image rehabilitation, the lawyer said. He's asking for closure. One conversation, 20 minutes, supervised. He wants to apologize. Vanessa almost laughed. He wants to apologize? He tried to kill me. He stole $97 million. He destroyed multiple women's lives. And now he wants closure? He's a human being who made mistakes. He's a predator who got caught, Vanessa said. And I'm not interested in making him feel better about it. Goodbye. She hung up, blocked the number. But the calls kept coming, different numbers, different lawyers, always the same message. Marcus wanted to see her. Marcus wanted to apologize. Marcus wanted closure. Finally, Madison said, "You should go." What? Vanessa looked at her sister like she'd lost her mind. Why would I do that? Because he's trying to manipulate the parole board, Madison said, trying to show he's remorseful, that he's made amends, and if you refuse to see him, he'll tell them you're vindictive, that you won't allow him to apologize, that you're preventing his rehabilitation. But if you go, if you see him and he tries his manipulation tactics, you can shut it down, publicly, on record. End his attempts at early release before they start. Vanessa thought about it, about Marcus in a cell, planning his comeback, about the story he'd tell. Poor Marcus Hart, the brilliant CEO destroyed by his vindictive ex-wife, the woman who wouldn't forgive, who wouldn't allow redemption. Fine, Vanessa said, I will go, but I'm recording every word, and if he tries his shit, I'm going to destroy him again. The federal prison in Big Spring, Texas was 3 hours from Austin. Vanessa drove there on a Wednesday, dressed in business casual, professional, composed. The woman Marcus had tried to erase, showing up as the woman he'd created instead. The visitation room was beige and depressing, cameras in every corner, guards at every door, and Marcus Hart sitting at a table in prison orange looking older, thinner, less like the man who'd laughed at her humiliation and more like someone who'd had time to think about what he'd lost. Thank you for coming, Marcus said as Vanessa sat down. His voice was quieter, subdued, nothing like the confidence he used to carry. I'm here because my lawyer said it might shut down your early release attempts, Vanessa said. Not because I forgive you, not because I want closure. So say whatever you plan to say and let's end this. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry for everything. The affair, the fraud, He stopped. Couldn't say it. The pills. I was never actually going to use them. I wanted options. Control. I realize now how sick that was. How wrong. You wanted options, Vanessa repeated. You wanted control. Marcus, do you hear yourself? You're not apologizing. You're explaining, justifying, making excuses. I know what I did was unforgivable. No, Vanessa interrupted. You don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't have spent the last 18 months trying to manipulate your way into early release. You wouldn't be sitting here trying to get me to absolve you so you can tell the parole board that your ex-wife has moved on and forgiven you. You're not sorry, Marcus. You're sorry you got caught. Marcus's expression shifted, the mask cracking. I lost everything, my company, my reputation, my freedom. Haven't I paid enough? You lost things, Vanessa said. I almost lost my life. Claire almost lost her son. Sienna's in prison too, by the way, 6 years. She gets out before you because she had the sense to cooperate. But you're here for 15 years minimum because you couldn't admit what you'd done until a jury forced you to. I'm admitting it now because you want something, Vanessa said. You're transactional, Marcus. You always have been. Every relationship, every conversation, every interaction is about what you can get. And right now, you want my forgiveness so you can use it as proof of rehabilitation. She leaned forward. But here's the thing, I didn't come here to forgive you. I came here to make sure you understand something. That chair hitting the floor, that moment you laughed at me in front of 20 people, that was the best thing that ever happened to me because it woke me up. For 6 years, I made myself smaller so you'd love me. I performed. I smiled. I made excuses for your absences, your distance, your cruelty disguised as concern. I chose to believe your lies because believing the truth meant my marriage was a performance and my life was a script written by someone else. But that laugh, Vanessa continued, that was the moment I stopped being your wife and started being myself again. So thank you, Marcus. Thank you for showing me exactly who you were. Thank you for being so obvious in your contempt that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Thank you for making it easy to walk away. Marcus stared at her. I loved you. You loved what I could do for you, Vanessa said. There's a difference, see. Love isn't transactional. Love isn't performance. Love it isn't using someone until they're no longer convenient and then planning their elimination. She stood. This is the last time we'll ever speak. You don't get closure, Marcus. You don't get forgiveness. You don't get redemption in my story. You're just the villain who finally faced consequences. And that's all you'll ever be. Vanessa, enjoy your 15 years, Vanessa said. And Marcus, if you somehow get early release, if you somehow convince a parole board you've changed, stay away from me. Stay away from Lily. Stay away from any woman who might be stupid enough to believe you've changed. Because we both know you haven't. You've just learned to hide it better. She walked out, didn't look back. The guards buzzed her through the doors, through security, back to the parking lot where her car waited, where her life waited, where Lily was at daycare and Daniel was making dinner, and Madison was texting about book club, and Jerry was sending photos of his grandkids. A whole life built without Marcus, built by Vanessa. Real, honest, hers. She drove home, picked up Lily from daycare. The 3-year-old chattered about dinosaurs and painting and her best friend Emma. Normal toddler problems, beautiful in their simplicity. At home, Daniel had made pasta. How did it go, he asked. I told him he was a business plan that failed, Vanessa said. And then I left. Daniel kissed her, "I'm proud of you." That evening, Vanessa's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. This is Claire. I heard you visited Marcus. Thank you for not letting him manipulate you. He tried the same with me last year. Wanted me to write a letter to the parole board. I refused. We have to stay strong. He doesn't get to win. Not anymore. Vanessa texted back. We're survivors, not as victims, never again. 3 weeks later, Marcus's request for early release was denied. The parole board cited lack of genuine remorse and continued attempts to manipulate victims for personal gain. His lawyer called. Vanessa didn't answer, blocked the number, moved on. Because that's what survivors did. They didn't give the villain a redemption arc. They wrote their own story instead. Lily's 4th birthday party was everything a dinosaur-obsessed kid could want. Jerry brought a T-Rex bouncy castle that dominated Vanessa's backyard. Kyle showed up with his boyfriend and anatomically correct dinosaur cupcakes. Madison brought her 3 kids who immediately started a fossil dig for toys buried in the sandbox. Vanessa stood on her porch watching chaos unfold. Daniel was patiently explaining to a crying 5-year-old that, no, we couldn't get a real dinosaur as a pet. But what about a lizard? Jedder Sullivan arrived late with an elaborate dinosaur skeleton model for educational purposes. She's going to be a paleontologist, Madison predicted, watching Lily direct the other kids in an elaborate dinosaur war reenactment. Or a CEO, Jerry said. That kid has organizational skills I didn't develop until I was 40. Claire drove down from Oregon with her new partner. Wouldn't miss it, she said, hugging Vanessa. How's everything? Good, Vanessa said, and meant it. COO of TechFront Solutions for 2 years now, married to Daniel for 18 months, 7 months pregnant with their son. Life built on truth instead of performance. Heard about Marcus's parole denial, Claire said quietly. 3rd time, Vanessa confirmed. His lawyer keeps trying, keeps getting rejected. Turns out multiple attempted manipulation attempts don't look good to parole boards. Good, Claire said. My son still has nightmares about prison visits. Some fathers aren't worth having. Kyle joined them, holding a glass of wine. So I'm working on a documentary. 3 women, 3 CEOs, 3 identical patterns. Would you both be willing to participate? Will it help other women spot the signs? Claire asked. That's the goal, Kyle said. Warning signs, red flags, how to protect yourself, how to fight back. Then yes, Vanessa and Claire said simultaneously. As the sun set, kids left with party bags full of dinosaur toys. Jerry and his wife were last to leave, Jerry insisting on helping clean up despite being 73 and supposedly retired. "You did good, kid," Jerry said, hugging Vanessa goodbye. "Real good." After everyone left, Vanessa and Daniel sat on the porch. Lily was asleep inside, exhausted from her perfect day. The house was quiet, peaceful. Theirs. "You never talk about it," Daniel said. "The trial, Marcus, everything that happened." "I don't think about it much anymore," Vanessa said. "That's not my life. This is." She gestured to the yard where Lily's party had been, the house they'd bought together, the neighborhood where they'd built community, the life that was real instead of performed. "Sometimes people ask what I learned," Vanessa continued, "and I tell them, the hardest part about betrayal isn't what they did. It's accepting you can't go back and fix it, can't rewrite history, can't make the lie true. You can only go forward. And some days, forward is just making it through breakfast. But other days, forward is rebuilding a company, raising a daughter, living a life that's honest. Those days make the hard days worth it." Daniel squeezed her hand. Inside, Lily stirred, called for her mom. Vanessa went to her daughter's room, sat on the bed. "Did you have fun today?" "Best birthday ever," Lily said sleepily. "Mama, when I grow up, can I be like you?" "What do you mean, baby?" "Strong," Lily said, "like the Triceratops. They had armor. Nothing could hurt them." Vanessa kissed her forehead. "You can be anything you want, but remember, strength isn't just armor. Strength is knowing when to fight, when to ask for help, when to walk away, and when to build something new." "Did you build something new?" Lily asked. "I did," Vanessa said. "I built us, you and me and Daniel and the baby, coming and all our friends. I built a whole life, and it's the best thing I ever made." Lily smiled, closed her eyes, drifted to sleep. Vanessa stood at the doorway, watched her daughter sleep, safe, loved, protected by a mother who'd chosen truth over comfort. 3 years ago, she'd been on a hospital floor, terrified and alone. Now she was here, whole, happy, free. Her phone buzzed. Email from Natasha Green. Subject, follow-up story 3 years later. Vanessa opened it, read the draft article about where everyone was now. Marcus, still in prison, denied parole 3 times. Sienna, released after 4 years, running a nonprofit teaching financial literacy to women leaving abusive relationships. Claire, happily remarried in Oregon. Jerry, retired and consulting part-time. Kyle, hosting a successful true crime podcast. And Vanessa, COO of a major tech company, remarried, 7 months pregnant, speaking regularly about corporate fraud and intimate partner violence, using her story to help others. At the bottom of the draft, Natasha had written, "Do you regret it? Blowing up your life, the public trial, everything that came after?" Vanessa hit reply, "I regret trusting Marcus. I regret ignoring red flags. I regret making myself small. But taking him down, that I don't regret. Because my daughter will grow up knowing her mother fought back. She'll never see me shrink. She'll never see me accept less than I deserve. That's not a revenge story. That's a freedom story. And freedom is worth everything." She hit send, closed her laptop, checked on Lily one more time, then climbed into bed next to Daniel. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's perfect," Vanessa said. And it was, not perfect like a fairy tale. Perfect like real life, messy and complicated and honest in hers. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, work deadlines, toddler tantrums, pregnancy discomfort. Normal life complications, but she'd face them without fear, without performance, without making herself small. Just Vanessa, strong, real, free. 1 year later, Vanessa's phone rang at 7 in the morning. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. "Mrs. Hart, this is Michelle Brennan from the Department of Justice. I'm calling about Marcus Hart's upcoming parole hearing." "He was denied 3 times, Vanessa said. "Why would this time be different?" "Because he's published a book," Michelle said, "from prison. It's called Convenient, How My Ambition Destroyed My Family. It's being marketed as a redemption memoir, and it's getting traction. Publishers Weekly called it a raw, honest look at white-collar crime and the cost of ambition. The parole board is considering it as evidence of rehabilitation. Vanessa felt her stomach drop. He wrote a book? Came out yesterday, Michelle said. I'm sending you a copy. You should read it before the hearing. And Mrs. Hart, you're not going to like it. The book arrived that afternoon. Vanessa sat in her home office while Daniel watched Lily and their son, James, who was now 6 months old. The cover showed a corporate boardroom. Empty. The tagline, the man who had everything until he lost it all. Vanessa opened to the first chapter. I laughed at my pregnant wife when she fell in a board meeting. That moment cost me everything. But it also saved me, because that laugh was the sound of a man who'd lost his humanity in pursuit of success. This is the story of how I found it again. How prison gave me what freedom never could, the chance to become human. Vanessa felt rage building in her chest. She flipped through pages, found the chapter about her. Vanessa was the perfect wife, smart, capable, devoted, but perfection is intimidating. I found myself seeking connection elsewhere. I'm not making excuses. What I did was wrong, but I want people to understand. Corporate culture rewards ambition over humanity. I lost myself in that culture, and I lost her because of it. Lost himself, lost her, like they were the same thing, like his choices were cultural inevitabilities instead of deliberate cruelty. She kept reading, found the chapter about the fraud. I take full responsibility for the financial crimes, but I also want people to understand the pressure, the investors demanding growth, the board expecting miracles, the constant need to show bigger numbers, higher profits. I made terrible choices, but I was a man drowning, and the offshore accounts felt like life preservers. No mention of the murder plot, no mention of the pills, no mention of planning her death, just a sad man who made mistakes under pressure. The final chapter was titled Forgiveness. I've reached out to Vanessa multiple times. I want to apologize, to make amends, to show her I've changed, but she refuses contact. I understand, I hurt her terribly, but part of rehabilitation is accepting that sometimes the people you've harmed aren't ready to forgive, and that's okay. I'm learning to forgive myself, and I hope someday she'll see that I'm not the man who laughed at her anymore. I'm the man who learned from his mistakes. Vanessa closed the book, picked up her phone, called Madison. He wrote a redemption arc, Vanessa said. He's rewriting history, making himself the victim of corporate culture, making me the unforgiving ex-wife who won't allow rehabilitation. I saw, Madison said. It's being reviewed in the New York Times next week. They're calling it insightful and surprisingly vulnerable. The narrative is shifting, Van. People are starting to see him as a man who made mistakes, not a predator who planned murder. What do we do? Vanessa asked. We tell the truth, Madison said, louder than he told the lie. Vanessa called Natasha. I need you to publish something before the parole hearing, before his book tour starts, before the narrative becomes about his redemption instead of his crimes. What do you want to say? Natasha asked. Everything he left out, Vanessa said. 3 days later, the Dallas Morning News published Vanessa's response. Front page, digital, and print. Marcus Hart wrote a book about losing everything through his ambition. Let me tell you what he left out. He left out the blood pressure Bergama's pills, the ones designed to cause stroke in a pregnant woman, the ones I found in his locked drawer with dosages 4 times what's safe. He wants you to believe his crimes were financial. They weren't. They were attempted murder. He left out the texts with his mistress discussing my pregnancy complications as convenient, how my potential death would solve several problems. How if I died of natural causes, he'd be the grieving widower with full custody and public sympathy. He left out his first wife, Claire. How he did this exact same thing to her 8 years earlier. Different woman, same playbook. Affair during pregnancy, financial fraud, exit strategy. Claire's baby was born at 32 weeks due to stress. My baby was born at 36 weeks for the same reason. He didn't mention in his book that both babies were going to be named Lily. That's not coincidence. That's pattern. He left out Sienna Cole, currently serving 6 years for her role in the fraud. He blamed corporate culture, but corporate culture didn't force him to steal $97 million. Corporate culture didn't force him to plan my death. Those were choices, deliberate, calculated. And he'd do them again if he thought he could get away with it. Marcus's book is titled Convenient. How fitting. Because I was convenient to him. Until I wasn't. Until I started asking questions about the offshore accounts. Until I became a liability instead of an asset. Then suddenly, my death became convenient too. He writes about seeking forgiveness, about wanting to apologize. Let me be clear, I visited him in prison 18 months ago. He didn't apologize. He tried to manipulate me into supporting his parole. And when I refused, when I told him I saw through his performance, he showed his real face. The same face that laughed when I fell, the same face that planned my elimination, the same face he's now hiding behind a memoir that rewrites him as the victim. I'm not the unforgiving ex-wife. I'm the woman who survived attempted murder and refused to help her attacker go free. Marcus Hart is not rehabilitated. He's not remorseful. He's strategic. And his book is just another con, another performance, another attempt to manipulate people into believing he's changed. He hasn't. He's just learned to hide it better. To the parole board, please read the transcripts, read the evidence, read the text where he planned my death. Don't read his book, because his book is what he wants you to believe. The transcripts are what actually happened. And to any woman reading this who sees herself in my story, you're not crazy. You're not paranoid. If something feels wrong, investigate. Document everything. Tell someone. And know that leaving, even when it's hard, even when it's public, even when it means blowing up your entire life, is always better than staying silent. I spent 6 years being convenient. Now I'm being inconvenient, and I'm not stopping until everyone knows the truth. The article went viral. Within 12 hours, Marcus's book dropped 40 places on Amazon. Publishers Weekly pulled their positive review. The New York Times canceled his profile piece. And 3 weeks later, the parole board denied Marcus's request for early release. 4th time. The statement cited ongoing pattern of manipulation and demonstrated lack of genuine remorse. Marcus's lawyer called. Vanessa didn't answer. Sienna texted, "Saw your article. Thank you. He tried to rewrite me too. Made me the villain he was manipulated by. You just saved both of us from his next con." Claire called, "I can finally breathe. I was terrified he'd get out early. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up again." That evening, Vanessa sat on her porch with Daniel. Lily was inside watching dinosaur documentaries. James was asleep in his crib. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, safe. "You okay?" Daniel asked. "I'm good," Vanessa said. "Marcus tried one more manipulation, and I shut it down for the last time." "You think he'll try again?" Daniel asked. "Probably," Vanessa said. "Men like Marcus don't change, they just adapt, find new angles, new narratives. But the difference now is people know. Claire knows, Sienna knows. Every woman he might target next knows his pattern. And that's how you stop predators. You tell their story so loudly they can't rewrite it." Daniel kissed her. "I'm proud of you, for fighting, for speaking up, for not letting him win." "I didn't do it to win," Vanessa said. "I did it because Lily needs to grow up knowing that when someone tries to erase you, you write yourself back into the story. Louder, stronger, more honest." That night, Vanessa checked on both kids. Lily sprawled across her bed, stuffed triceratops clutched in one hand. James in his crib, peaceful and perfect. 2 children who would grow up watching their mother refuse to be silenced. She climbed into bed next to Daniel. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. TechFront Solutions was launching a major product. She had presentations to give, strategy meetings to lead, and a whole career built on competence instead of convenience. But tonight she was just Vanessa, mother, wife, survivor, woman who'd stared down her would-be killer and refused to let him rewrite history. Her phone buzzed one last time. Text from unknown number. "This is Marcus. I saw your article. You've destroyed any chance I had at early release. I hope you're happy. You've won. Are you satisfied now?" Vanessa read it, smiled, typed back, "I didn't win, Marcus. I survived you. There's a difference, and yes, I'm very satisfied. Enjoy your remaining 11 years. I'll be living my life, the one you tried to take, the one I built without you, the one that's real. She hit send, blocked the number, deleted the message, closed her eyes, and slept the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who had finally stopped being convenient and started being free. So that's how a chair kick at a board meeting led to a 15-year prison sentence and exposed a pattern that spanned 3 women in 8 years, from humiliated pregnant wife to the woman who took down a $97 million fraud ring in an attempted murder plot. If this story made you furious, then relieved, then inspired, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps stories like this reach women who need to hear them. Women making themselves small, women in marriages that feel wrong, women who need permission to investigate their instincts. Drop a comment. Would you have worn the wire while 8 months pregnant? Would you have visited Marcus in prison for that final confrontation? I read every single comment, and your perspectives always add something I hadn't considered. And if you want more true stories about ordinary people who refuse to stay convenient, hit subscribe. Because next week's story involves a prenuptial agreement, a yacht party, and a USB drive hidden in a wedding cake that destroyed a billionaire's empire. You won't want to miss it. Until then, remember Vanessa's words to any woman who sees herself in this story. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. If something feels wrong, investigate. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. And know that leaving, even when it's hard, even when it's public, even when it means blowing up your entire life, is always better than staying silent. You deserve more than convenient. You deserve real, and you deserve to survive. See you in the next one.